Fáilte isteach a réist a chairde. Welcome to Music at Madden's with me, Lynette Fay. This is a weekly podcast, drops on Mondays, and we invite members of our traditional music community to come up to the Snug here in Madden's Bar, which is the heartbeat of trad music here in Belfast City, and we have a little chat. So let's find out who is in the Snug this week. In the Snug this week, the one and only, glad we finally tracked him down, Michael McGoldrick. Welcome.
Hello, Lynette. Lovely to be here. Delighted
Absolutely
to be here.
delighted to have you here. And oh my God, what a story. We're never going to do it justice on one podcast. It feels like we need a series. But trying to track you down for this one was hard enough, so we'll not go there.
Busy teaching, and Donald O'Connor's got me working everywhere.
It was his fault, yes. We will blame him. But Mike, there's even trying to work out, where do we start this conversation? What do we do? I thought maybe because you're teaching at Tradfest, I thought maybe Wednesday nights when you went to music class when you were a youngster, there was a whistle in every room in the house. Which most houses might be like that as well, with the wee ones going to Tradfest at the weekend. Can you paint that picture for us?
So before, I have two sisters and a brother, and I was the youngest in the family. And Mum used to just put whistles everywhere. She left whistles in the kitchen, she left whistles in the living room, everywhere. And one of the things was she knew where I was in the house. She says, because you were that kid that couldn't pass it without a little few tunes here, everywhere you go past the whistle. And she said that was me getting you to practice. So I didn't have to say, sit down now and do your practicing. She said you couldn't pass the whistle without having a little blast of that tune that you were learning at the music lessons. So what we used to do was, Dad didn't drive, Mum didn't drive, so we used to go on the bus every week. So Mum used to take us Wednesday evenings onto the number 42, through from a place called Withington to Rusholme, to St Edward's Community Centre next to the church. And we used to go there 7:30 and practice the whistle and do the Cayley bands. It was a group of probably 40 kids, and there was a woman, her name was Delia Buckley. She was a fiddle player, concertina player, box player, and luckily enough my dad played the whistle, so he's the man that started me, and I picked it up by ear, and I was able to then just follow the tunes that Delia wrote on the blackboard, and we still just sit there and play them. But funnily enough, I wasn't very good at reading the notes, so I used to just listen to the tune once or twice, even at the age of 7 and 8, and just pick it up by ear and kind of pretend I was playing but wasn't blowing it until I got it in my head, and then I used to play the tune.
Smart.
I found it easier that way. It's just quick ear and picking up, and then we used to get the bus home then in the evening, and it was
I was going to ask you, funny, what age were you at that stage?
So I was about 8 years old.
Because the way there's the big debate that if a child isn't basically born with a whistle in its hand, it's not going to be a whistle player, and that you're too late. When are you too late? When are you too young to pick it up?
For me, because my family was, all my brothers and sisters were practicing the whistles anyway. What happened was I picked a tune up that they were playing. I think it was a tune called Little Maggie in the Wood. It's like a beginner's, polka. And I remember my sister coming home, and I was sat on the stairs, and she said, I said, Bernie, come here, I can play that tune. And she's going, you can't play that tune, you don't play the whistle. And I was like, no, I can. And I'd been sitting there on the stairs in the house, working it out, what they'd been practicing. And I remember her saying, Dad, come here, listen to Mike, he can play Little Maggie in the Wood. And I think it was from then, it's like, we'll have to start taking him to music, because I was too young to go on the bus.
Yeah.
But then because I'd shown an interest in, I could play a little tune, boom, off to music lessons then. And then they actually put me on the snare drum. I was actually a drummer. I didn't play the whistle for a while. They put me on the drums and the bodhrán, and then went on to the whistle pretty quickly.
Do you think there's the sense of rhythm? It's all making a lot of sense.
It makes a lot of sense, yeah.
Because it was in you from a very, very early age.
Yeah.
And growing up in that house with your mummy and daddy, is it you've Galway
so
and Mayo?
Galway and Mayo.
Parents,
mother's Mayo side and father's Galway.
You were interested in the match there on Sunday,
were
you?
Mayo, yeah. And it's really funny. I played in the Mandela Hall. I don't know if this was just by chance, but the lights were green and red.
Way.
Yeah. It was like Mayo lights. I was like, this is fantastic.
Sunday night.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Oh my gosh, the country's still reeling over it. It's crazy.
I know, my cousins have been texting me saying how they're still partying, they can't believe it. 75 years, the curse is lifted.
Yeah, it doesn't matter when. You get to Mayo this year, Mike, will still be partying, so you'll be all right. You haven't missed out.
I can't wait to get down to Malloy's or something,
Yeah, oh no, the scenes were something else. But I suppose that having both parents from Ireland, growing up in Manchester, what is that like, and what's your sense of identity?
Well,
When you're growing up, did you see yourself as Irish? Do you see yourself as different, or do you what
not
is
at all.
it?
I'm very comfortable being from Manchester. I love Manchester. I love my hometown. I love everything about it, from like growing up being in sports clubs to having lots of friends from Manchester to following bands from Manchester to going to eat Indian food and different, so diversity in Manchester, clubs and music venues, and just it's a great city to live in. And it's not too big, and you can get from A to B very cheap in a taxi, and you can travel on metros and buses, and it's all a great thing. So for me, growing up, the sense of identity was always you were from Manchester, and then you had Irish family. So, and
Yeah.
we are really proud of our Irish family. Me and my brothers and sisters love our cousins, love our mum and dad, and it's funnily enough, a lot of friends that I went to the music classes with. So, like you just said, explain what music was like. So all them kids were the same as me.
Yeah.
There was nobody like, there was 40 kids whose parents came from Ireland, and 15 of them went to the same school as me. We all, and we played on the same football team, and we played football, we played Gaelic football, and we ran in cross-country clubs, and we all did the same. It's just second nature. So you didn't really have any problem with coming from an Irish family until there might be the odd word said to you when you got a little bit older.
Yeah.
But, if you know where you're from and you know where you're coming from, there's no argument to be there.
Yeah.
For me anyway.
Yeah.
It's just, you just move on.
It's just I was at the opening of a really interesting exhibition up in the Elmwood Hall as part of the Flute celebrations, and it's the Irish in Britain.
Okay.
And looking back to look forward, it's called.
Okay.
And it's exploring those relationships of people who left here. Was there so many of them, as you know, with your parents, going over to England, looking for a new life.
Yep.
The types of life they got. Some people did okay, others didn't.
Yep.
It's all the emotions. It's an emotional roller coaster, but the human element of the stories. And there was something that really hit me was the papers, and that keeping in touch with home.
Absolutely.
Getting the paper, and the paper even been lying around the house, like even the tin whistle's been lying around the house, things like that.
Yeah.
That sense of Irishness always to the fore.
I mean, so let's just say when they leave Ireland, their Irish identity becomes stronger. They want to hold on to it. So, they bring up the kids in, like I said, your sisters did Irish dancing, you did Irish music, you played Gaelic football, there was hurling, there was, everything was there. And for them, I think it was important for what they left behind to bring us up with the same thing. But I think a lot of them was more to do with education, because they want you to better themselves, and they want your kids to better themselves. So they send them off to university and getting better jobs and things like that. I mean, my grandfather used to come to England to work for a season. So he used to leave Mayo and come to England and work on an Englishman's farm in different parts of England. It could be picking potatoes, or it could be whatever the crops were doing. This was in the 50s, late 40s, 50s. And whatever money he made, he went back, and that helped the family in back in Mayo. And then when my father came to England in probably 1958 or 59, it was a similar thing for him. He got working in construction and working with, like, he didn't really, all the Irishmen would do, all the navvies they were all digging roads and doing gas mains and working on construction sites and building motorways and building canals and building the railways. And I always remember when I joined a band at like 17, I joined this band called Toss the Feathers, and we were heading out to places and we were touring and stuff. And I used to come in, and then my dad would be in the local pub, and his friends would be there from Roscommon and from Belfast and from Donegal and from all different parts of Ireland. And all they wanted to know was, what's it like in Germany? What's it like? They wanted to hear stories of what it was like, for me going over there and playing music in America and playing music in France and having the opportunity. It's just great stories, Just loved that thing of just, they were so welcoming, and you could never, ever buy a drink. You couldn't. As you walked in, they jumped up and put their hand in the pocket.
But I imagine, like, at that stage, you were 17 in a band, playing traditional music in Toss the Feathers with your friends from school and from home. They couldn't have been prouder of you. That's why you were never buying a drink.
I think so. I think Mum and I know. It was absolutely very proud. Absolutely. And when you just mentioned the Irish in Britain exhibition, I've just been working on a programme with a young girl. Her name's Hannah Donlan. Hannah Donlan, she's a singer, and I think she might have played a bit of whistle. Maybe I gave her lessons when she was younger. She'd be early 20s. And she was on holiday. Her father's from Galway, her mother's from Kerry. And she went over there last year on a holiday, and she was in the car, and she just started talking to mum and dad. Not as a child anymore, as an adult, and
Yeah.
hearing stories about mum and dad coming to England and what their first job. Mum worked in as a nurse, and dad was a friend of my dad's, and he worked in construction. He's actually from the same place, Dunmore in Galway. And it gave her this idea. She was like, oh man, there's so much I haven't asked. There's so much out there. These stories are amazing. So she got in touch with me and she said, look, I'm going to do this podcast series and I want you to be involved, and I'm going to put it out there to people to say, look, if you've got any stories, I'll just come and interview you. And there was so many. She interviewed so many people, and I started to get used to the characters. And I'd never met these people. She went off and recorded and interviewed them, and then gave me the tapes. And I was writing music to the interviews, and I started to get to know these characters, and the stories were amazing. Like one fella, he said, when he first came to Manchester, he'd never seen a red brick building, And then there's a woman. She said she came from Antrim, and she arrived, and the smog, the smoke.
Yeah. And she's used to the fresh air.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She said it was just like, got off the train station. I couldn't see any of Manchester. It was just like all foggy and smoky from the factories.
Yeah.
And anyway, they just, they start telling the stories and start telling, like, keeping paper cuttings and writing home every week and letting them know how they're doing. And there was no phones. And it's a fantastic. It's called There's a Lot I Haven't Asked, and it's a podcast series, and it's out there. You can listen to it on Spotify or Apple.
Good plug, because I think that's something that will resonate with a lot of people listening to this podcast too.
I think you ask a question about identity. There's a couple of people talking on it as well who struggled with their Irish identity as well.
Yeah.
They weren't as comfortable as I was, being from Manchester, playing Irish music, and and feeling very proud of it, as well as being very proud of Manchester, my hometown. Some of them didn't know how to deal with it, and they talk about it on the podcast as well. And now they're older. Now they feel it's really important, and they wish they were a bit more stronger when they were younger and stuck up for themselves and loved the parents a bit more and stuff like that. But it's really interesting.
What did it get you thinking about?
I just love listening to everybody's story. Everybody's different. That's what I like. I like everybody has a story, and I was, some of it's quite emotional as well. Some of them, in fact, they got the racist abuse when they were there in the 70s. No blacks, no dogs, no Irish, and they tell that story. They're the ones that went through that, not me. It's they're the ones that, right, we're going to, not listen to this, and we're just going to get on with it, and we're going to work hard, and we're going to get through this, and not listen to it,
And would you have had those types of conversations with your own parents?
Not really, no. But I get on so well with my parents. I know I've actually, have recordings of them telling me stories of who played. I love asking them who was around, because Mum sang in all the pubs in Manchester. Mum she's got a great, powerful voice, and Dad didn't really play in the sessions. He was shy, so he would play at home and just he'd have a drink and listen to music. But he'd tell me, Felix Doran, the great piper, Johnny Doran's brother, Desi Donnelly's uncles, Frank Donnelly, Desi's dad Frank, and his uncle Desi, and Tony Howley, flute player from Sligo, Michael Gorman.
Because those memories all paint the picture, don't
paint the
they?
picture.
Even
So Dad would
knowing
say,
who was in the room.
Yeah, he'd say go into and these pubs that are not there anymore, the Little Robin, Auntie's Bar, all these. I'm like, oh, I wish I was around in them days. It sounds fantastic. Mum always tells, she tells a story. She used to go into this pub. The landlord was from Mayo, and she said, I wouldn't have even be sat down and there'd be a drink over. Give us a song, give us a song, give us a song. And she'd be like, oh, I've not even had a drink, And he said, give us a song, give us a song. So she would sing a song, and my dad always says, where's my drink? And the landlord says, you're not singing. So he says, your mother always got free drink and I didn't get anything. And then Mum says, there was a pub. He used to do it on purpose because there was a pub across the road that loads of Mayo men were in drinking. And as soon as my mum, Teresa Walsh, she was known, Teresa Walsh would start singing. Somebody would run across the road and say, Teresa Walsh is singing in the
She emptied the other pub.
And they'd all come over then. And he was she says he was crafty, the landlord. He knew how to get the crowd in,
Oh my goodness.
So I love all these little stories that they tell from.
So, but your mummy sounds like she was a bit of a performer then as well.
Well, she probably could have gone on to be a performer. I think she was asked to go to America when she was young and stuff like that. But she brought up her family instead and just was rooted in.
Yeah, but you didn't like it off the pot, as they say. So there maybe the performance is in you as well.
Do Dad's a great player as well. Dad's a fantastic whistle player. I mean, he would have sat me down and taught me his repertoire of tunes, which are kind of like your standard session tunes: the Geese in the Bog, the Sligo Maid, the Sally Gardens, the Shasky, the Maids of Cisco, the Battering Ram, all these tunes. And I'm just so happy that he was really kind and really generous with his music, because he gave me everything.
Yeah.
Everything he could play, he gave it to me, you know. And that's what I play when I'm playing. I think of, you know, what he taught me, and, you know, and he says, oh, you've passed me out now, you know, you've gone on. But he would also be interested, because he never stops listening to the radio. He's always listening to the new bands. He's well aware of everybody from, just, I don't need to mention any bands' names, but he just hears it all the time, you know.
Yeah.
It's like,
So an insatiable appetite for
and
it
you can
all.
hear the music changing.
You
know.
have that too.
Yeah.
You have that too. You're always listening to, you know, who's good, who's doing this, who's doing that, just out of interest, out of just this
Absolutely.
curiosity of
I
what's
love
going on.
I mean, when we used to buy CDs, I used to love buying CDs. I just spent all my money buying albums, other people's albums. Now you listen to it on, you know, Spotify. But yeah,
It's not the same.
It's not
you
the
need it in your
same.
hands.
I
You need it,
know.
all the sleeve notes and
I mean,
all the
have you
details.
still got a CD player in your car? I have. You know,
Yes, I do.
So that's when I listen to still listen to so much music, is when I'm driving. I go to so many gigs. You know, it's just great to have that 4-hour journey and listen to 3 albums on the way to the gig.
And is that still, like, you know, we'll get into what you do and your music and all the rest of it, but is that still energizing you as a musician and as a performer?
It is, yeah.
You know, things that you'll maybe see someone doing something that you didn't think of, and you go, God, right,
that's
let's do
inspired
that.
me.
Yeah,
Let's have a go at that. Let's try that. Or even just some chords that will be behind a tune. You think that's really, really nice. I'm going to try and remember that idea and see how that fits, and that instrument and this
and
sound.
do you think that openness to new ideas and that openness to freshness, fresh perspectives,
I think
has
it's
always
great.
just contributed to who
my
you are as a
sound.
musician,
Yeah, I
who you
think
are as a
so.
person?
I definitely think so. Yeah. And I'm still, you know, constantly searching, you know, looking for new sounds, new ideas, new projects, new things to work on, keeping your options open, tick different boxes. You know, don't. Somebody said to me, I'm teaching today, and he says, once you find a flute, do you stick to it? I was like, no, because you're just looking for, there could be something else out there, you know, trying new flutes and trying different things, and, you know, just, it might change your playing a bit, it might add something new to your playing, or, you know, just
Give you the freedom to
just
experiment a wee bit more as well.
might just go to the high notes a bit easier and they end up doing
Yeah.
that a bit more, so yeah.
That's fascinating. That doesn't surprise me at all. You mentioned Toss the Feathers band at 17, and you gave us a lovely, I can only describe it as a flavour of Manchester, because it felt like you could almost taste it with the sounds, the smells, just
with
just
the
the
food, the
colour of it.
flavours.
That it was just this lovely smorgasbord, multicoloured, multicultural place to come from, and like I've heard it's referred to so many different times as a melting pot. You know, anybody who grew up in the 80s and 90s listening to any type of music, Manchester's bound to have influenced you at some
I
point.
think, do you know, there's so many great people, like, you know, so let's look at Oasis.
Yeah.
Let's look at Johnny Marr from the Smiths.
Smiths.
Look at Steve Coogan.
Yeah.
You know, these people, just like me, came to Ireland on the summer holidays every single week. They listened to their aunties singing songs in the house.
Yeah.
That influenced their music. Them beautiful melodies influence what they come out with. You can hear little sort of, I don't know what it is, but there's just something in the songs that them beautiful old Irish songs had. And that their aunties were singing and their uncles were singing, or they were listening to on cassettes or CDs growing up of records. And there's so many lads that are from Irish backgrounds that have, you know, gone on from Manchester. The lad who played the bass with the Stone Roses, they just passed away recently. Another Irish family, and footballers and sports people. It's just, you know, we're all there. I think.
Dare I ask United or City?
United.
Oh, there we go. You were a wee bit reticent there.
No, sorry.
It's out now. It's out. but then, you know, so you know, deeply rooted in the Irish tradition, but then you've got the multiculturalism all around you, and it's like you didn't have to seek it out. Was there?
Do you know? I'll tell you. What happened was I was in a taxi. This is the first time I was interested in sort of another music. Was when we used to play every Monday. We played a club called the 32, and it was this 32 club near the Apollo in Ardwick Green, and I'd be getting taxis quite late at night, you know, finishing at 12 o'clock, so you're getting a taxi. And then most of the taxi drivers back then would have been either Pakistani or would have been Indian, and they'd turn the music off when I'd get into the car. And I'd say, oh, put your music on. And he'd go, no, it's Indian music, you won't like it. And I'd go, no, honestly, just...
Try me?
Yeah, try me. And then they'd play it, and I'd say, so what's the song about? And they'd say, oh, this is a man who's travelled and he's working and he's left his loved one behind and he's just making enough money to get her to come over. And I'm like, look, these songs are the same songs, same stories in the songs that we sing in the folk tradition. And then I'd be hearing the Indian drums and I'd be like, what's that? And it's, this is sitar and this is tabla. And I was like, at 17, I was 18, I was like, that sounds brilliant with a reel. All these like ideas, and it was from a taxi. I was just in a taxi listening to music in a taxi, but I took it home with me, and then I got a cassette off the guy. He gave me one guy, a taxi driver, gave me the cassette. He says you can keep it, and then I started listening to. That was the first time I'd ever heard Indian music, and then I went on to work with Indian musicians, from the famous Zakir Hussain to Hari Prasad Shirazi, the flute player, to Parvinder Bharat, who plays in my band.
But I think mostly the major breakthrough was Fused.
Yeah,
and it was that album had just everything, and it felt like a breakthrough moment. It felt like no one's done this before, but you were bringing very authentically your experience of growing up in Manchester to that record. This was unapologetically you, and again back to that just insatiable curiosity that you have for,
I think so,
Indigenous music from other countries was just all there.
I think working with all the lads that played on the album had the same, they were coming from the same background as well. It wasn't, I mean, I'm a good instigator. I can bring people together, I can make things work, and then their ideas come in. And it's like, this is amazing. I can only go a certain level, and then they bring in their thing. Especially Donald Shaw. Donald Shaw for me was, I mean, let's just say I listened to all the Capercaillie records. So I was probably the only Irish musician in Manchester who was listening to Capercaillie and kind of introduced Capercaillie to the lads out of Toss the Feathers. And I was saying, check this band out. They're absolutely amazing. They sound like a Scottish version of Moving Hearts and things like that, And then I found out that Don Lunny's brother was in the band, Manus Lunny, and start reading stuff. So when I made my first album, Donald wasn't involved in it. I was actually working with Manus from Capercaillie, and I met Donald through that. And then he played on a track of mine, and then he wrote to me and he said, "Would you come to Scotland and play on a Capercaillie record?" So I got the train up and I played on a Capercaillie record. I couldn't believe it, because I used to go to a record shop and buy Capercaillie albums and sit and listen to them. And then, they were like musical heroes of going up to play on their album, being asked a lad from Manchester to go up and play with this band, Capercaillie. And then when I started talking to Donald about music, we were listening to Weather Report, Jacob Pastorius, James Brown, loads of sort of funk stuff. I was listening to the lad from Belfast, David Holmes, and Banco de Gaia, and all kind of like trip hop and Massive Attack and Portishead and all this stuff in the 90s. And then old sort of blues. And Donald was just like such a knowledge of, he knew every band I mentioned. Oh yeah, that's a great album. I was like, this guy knows everything, He knows, it was just...
Soul brother.
Yeah, straight away. So when you work in a studio with somebody like Donald, who's is a very good people's person, and sometimes I'm not very good at sort of explaining myself, that what I'm trying to do as a soul brother, he just goes, yeah, I know what you mean. Do you mean this? And then it could be, no, not that. And then and he's very open.
Okay.
And that's how that album Fuse sort of built. I came up with the ideas, and then he sort of helped me create them,
And it was so like of its time and very groundbreaking. Like you've done an awful lot of amazing things up until that point as well, and like the amount of bands you've been involved in as well is just it's actually off the charts. Which is what you said there. You love finding people and putting them all together. I was thinking, there's Flook and there's Lúnasa, and then he's got Capercaillie, and then all your own projects as well, and then like your work with John McSherry. Before we started recording today, I was thinking about that At First Light album. You mentioned Ornette Coleman, and Ornette's trip to Belfast. Like, what a tune!
Well, we're here in Madden's, and I think we were down. There was a festival in Port Glenone, like the Tradfest, and this was in
Gig in the band.
Yeah, gig in the band. 1995, I think it was, or 96, and we played a Saturday night. Myself, John McSherry, Donald O'Connor, and Tony Byrne, and Donald got me a gig in Belfast, in Madden's. And I remember coming from the festival gig in the band up to Madden's. This was the first time I ever came into Madden's, was in 1995 to do a little gig downstairs. And that was just fantastic. Yeah, and here we are sat in Madden's again 30 years later.
There you go. Bringing it all full
Yeah,
circle.
yeah.
But it was like that when you mentioned though the ability to bring the right people into a project,
Yeah.
and knowing it's the right time, or they're just is that a gift you have? Do you think, or it's just
being in the right place at the right time, and then and being open to music, and being a musician, you have to have. I mean, for me, it's more important. I don't listen to myself when I'm playing. It's listening to the person you're playing music with, who's next to you. How do you lock in with this person? How do you make this sound the best possible way? So it was really easy to work with John McSherry because his piping was very similar to my flute playing. We both listened to the same influences, listening to Plankstein, listening to the Bothy Band. So he was a Paddy Keenan fan, I was a Matt Malloy fan. The two of us just rattled off a set of tunes, and it was like, boom, yeah, we're playing the same thing. Lúnasa started, that's the sound of the fiddle. Sean was into Tommy Peoples, and that was it. You're sitting in the same room, we're all reading off the same page. Then the next thing is like, right, what tunes can we play? So that's where I remember being like into Pierre Bensusan, the French guitarist, and I was like, these tunes would be nice on this, and it just picking different stuff. And then me and John were very into Breton music. The McSherrys had been out to Brittany. I'd been out to Brittany with Toss the Feathers, and I'd met Jean-Michel Villon, and we'd bought Breton albums, and I think he was one of the first to be playing Breton music around Belfast.
Yes, he was. Yeah.
Maybe this Desi Wilkinson and flute player, friends with Jean-Michel. The name's just, I can't think of the name, but they were a bit older than John. They brought Breton music. Maybe they influenced John with the Breton music. Well, this sound was new to Irish music to add in on the first Lúnasa album, and I think. And then the same with flute, working with Brian Finnegan, and Sarah, and having 3 flutes together. Who would have put 3 flutes together? Well, it was Becky Morris that did that. But, it was easy. It's just, I enjoyed it. It was just a sound. We all had different styles. It was, it worked for a short while I was there.
What was the original name of Flook?
It was called Flutopia.
Flutopia.
Yeah. Or Three Nations
Three
Flutes.
Nations Flutes,
Yeah.
that was it.
Oh, Three Nations Flutes.
The one that doesn't quite rattle off the tongue.
Yeah, it wasn't. I mean, the Three Nations. So maybe I was from Wales, and Sarah was from London, England, and Brian was Irish. The Three Nations. That was, but it was great fun. All these things help shape where you're going. That for me.
Yeah.
So whether it was the Cayley band to, Lúnasa, to Toss the Feathers, to Flook, to Capercaillie, to, transatlantic sessions, to Mark Knopfler, to whatever. These just help shape you where you.
I hope you're writing a book. Are you keeping notes?
My mother keeps saying,
seriously, Mike, like honestly, even though you've just rattled off all the names of those bands and those musicians who you've played with, and you haven't even mentioned John Doyle and John McCusker.
I know, that's my latest
trio.
That's the latest project. This is what I've done for the last 10 years.
Incredible tune. Just keep producing the goods.
We just keep doing it. It works. It's a thing that don't
and your
change
solo work and that tunes album with Sharon Shannon and Frankie.
Yeah, that didn't really stand a long period as a band, but it was fantastic.
Gorgeous
album.
music.
Lovely
For the 2 albums.
Yeah.
Fabulous stuff. Like, so there's just so many kind of moments in time, and then you manage somewhere along the line to come up with a new solo record or solo. It's more, but it feels like every time you come up with something, though, it's a project and a concept.
I make music for me, really. I do. I make music for me, and if people like it, it's a bonus.
Yeah.
So I go in there not trying to be clever and a smarty pants to go, this will be a new thing, and I don't ever do that. It's just if I like it, I feel, and the people I'm working with, then that's the result. And then if people come back and say, I bought your album, nice work, I love it, it's fantastic.
Yeah, but most recently in the last couple of years, though, I think were you working with your toughest kind of collaborators yet? Yeah.
Oh my God.
Then Mike and the nieces putting you to work, putting you through your paces.
Do you know what? That was so easy. It's so sweet. We made the album in my brother's front room. I just went round a bit like this, just set up, and the girls just rattled out all the tunes. But
what was amazing about that, though, whenever I realised that you were making the album with them, first of all, I couldn't believe they were all as old as they were, because I remember them small.
Yeah.
And I remember being at the Dairy Fla in 2013, and you all came up onto our radio show and stood on the stage and played, and it was the cutest thing. I think you were heading up to do TV work, but you were down playing tunes with the girls.
Yeah.
They were competing in the competitions. And for me in that moment, That's what it was all about.
Yeah, community, family, spirit, bringing people together.
Yeah.
And also looking out for my nieces and giving them a dig out to say, come on, let's come and play with Uncle Michael, or can I join in with you? And now it's got to the stage where that if I get a gig and I ring them and I say, listen, this is an amazing festival in Spain, and they've asked us to play, and they go, what's the date? And I say, oh, it's the 7th of July or something. They go, nah, Willie Week's on. We're not missing Willie Week. Look at Willie Clancy. It's like, all right, okay, you don't want to go to Spain then? Oh, no, Willie Clancy. So they still got their things that they love doing, and they
2
can't
feet
change
firmly on the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter. They're not bothered about big.
But that's beautiful, and
Yes.
you can see them on Instagram and that social media where they've got their own style of music.
Yeah.
Doing their own things, their own bands, and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
Like, how does that make you feel when you see that?
I'm learning. I keep nicking all their tunes. I'm like, Catherine, have you got any good reels? And she'll be like, yeah. It's brilliant. Full circle. They're teaching me.
And we're gigging a wee bit together as well as the family band, weren't you?
We're actually going out to Austria in December for 4 weeks touring as the family band with Alicia Kelly on harp and a crowd from Canada.
Lovely.
From Canada. So yeah, we're looking. So that'll be the first proper touring we've done as a band. But we've played at quite a few festivals over the summer. And then one of my nieces moved to Germany, and the other one went on a tour, one of these dance shows. She was in Australia for months, so I couldn't do anything. But anyway, they're all back now, and after the summer we'll knuckle down, and we might even maybe sort of start recording another album.
I was going to say the winter months get quiet for you, but like they don't, because in recent years you've been touring with Mark Knopfler, and then you've Transatlantic Sessions, Celtic Connections, then with John Doyle and John McGoldrick.
My year starts exactly. It's great to be in that position.
It's constant,
Yeah. So you start your year, transatlantic, Celtic Connections, Transatlantic Sessions, and then on the road with the two Johns, which can be a tour for 8 weeks, 7 weeks. It just flies by. It just goes so quick. Once you get into a roll of it, we've been doing it for so long now, like at least over 10 years, maybe 15 years we've been friends and playing. It's second nature, that gig.
So when your schedule is so heavily connected to touring,
I've just been off for 2 weeks. I've just been on holiday.
You had,
you have to do them things.
Are you better now? Was that because of lockdown, or is that just because of where you are in life, or do you have to teach yourself lessons as you go along and really check in?
Well, some of it was very much looking after the family. I paid all the bills and I looked after paying the mortgage, and I worked hard and with us in so many bands to provide for my family. I am so lucky that I enjoy playing. I love music. I love my job. I'm loving playing. And people say, "Do you not knackered like touring? You're on the road all the time. Do you not like get burnt out and stuff?" But I wouldn't. Sometimes when I'm on that tour with the two Johns, I would maybe have 1 pint a week. Yeah. I don't. I'm not a heavy drinker. On days when you're working, and it's like I don't really need a drink before the gig, and then you might have a late night because unfortunately that's the only time to socialise is after the gig finishes, and then you might have a blowout or whatever. But
can that be tough? Can it be tough to say no those sometimes?
Yeah, sometimes, yeah, but you do. I think the older I get, the bit more sense we're kind of getting. But like schedule wise, I mean, straight after this I'm off to work with Capercaillie, where they're playing at the Commonwealth Games. Then they're over to Edinburgh to the Fringe, and then I'm down to an English folk festival in Sidmouth, and then I'm in Sidmouth for a few days, and then I fly to the Guinness Festival in Switzerland, and then from Switzerland I fly to Lorient, to Brittany, to the Inter-Celtic Festival, and I get home on the 12th of August from today. That's the schedule now, and then you'll have a break for a couple of weeks, and then head out to that festival in Denmark in two.
So you can fill. You've timed enough to fill your cup.
You have a couple of weeks off, and do normal things. My son and his partner had a baby there in November last year.
Congratulations.
So I'll go and see my little granddaughter, Gracie May, and things like that. Just do family things. My daughter's 18 when I get back. Cora, she's 18, so we'll be having an 18th for Cora. And so just do family things. And see my parents. My parents are still alive, and I go and see them every day. I call down to mum and dad every day, bring the papers, sit and have a coffee or a cup of tea, and have a chat with them, and that lifts up their spirits a bit, and then get on with the day. Yeah.
What about I know that, but whenever you do have downtime after the schedule you've just outlined there, I'm thinking, where do you get the time? And seriously, how do you just live a life where there's 48 hours in a day? Because you also teach kids, and you've been doing that for a long time. Is that something you do when you can?
It's something that I started doing after. I did it for a while and then I stopped. And then during lockdown, that's when, people were doing things and, lots of people were baking bread. I was teaching. I actually went online and put myself out there and says, look, I'm available for lessons. And then who did I call? I called somebody. I got a bit nervous about it. I was like, oh God, how do you do this? This online thing, teaching online, how do you do it? So I think it was Liz Doherty. She's got this kind of setup.
Yes, she has, yeah.
She's got a setup and she said, look, here's a few tips of doing it. And after the first lesson I came off, I rang her and I says, thanks very much for the tips. It was just all the preparing work before it and just a few stories and different things. And I says, no, I really appreciate the help that you give me for setting that up for me, and,
yeah.
And then I kept doing it. And then I've been involved with the cross media, the border, Cavan Monaghan.
I wanted to get to that because Mike, that was one of the most a really special night.
Yeah. Doing things like more teaching. I've been involved with the music generation down in Portlaoise, and I'm teaching Manchester, and I still teach online to people in Germany, and I teach people in London. And I think I was a bit not academic enough when I was younger. I was very excited about doing music, but I wasn't focused on doing the teaching when I was younger. Mm-hmm. So, and now I feel I can.
Yeah, you've got to that stage
I've got to that stage where I'm comfortable, and the more you do it, the more you get into a kind of a pattern and a routine.
But also, I suppose the appetite for people to learn from you. And with that Cavan Music Generation, Cavan Monaghan project with Michael Rooney, like basically, if anyone hasn't seen it or doesn't know what we're talking about, there was a 50-strong orchestra of kids, all different types of musical instruments, playing your music with you, conducted by Michael Rooney, and it was yourself and Tim Eadie and James McIntosh. And
Desi Donnelly.
And Desi Donnelly. Oh gosh, how did I forget Desi? And Michael Rooney had arranged your music for the orchestra.
Michael Rooney,
some of your contributions.
Michael Rooney went to
your compositions.
Fused, and we we did a whole hour of my tunes.
Yeah.
And Michael Rooney had to take just say Neil Yates's brass line and think, right, how are we going to work, where we can fit, how are we going to fit this in? So I know concertinas, you're the brass. So all the brass lines went to the concertinas. If there's string arrangements, he brought in classical string players.
Yep.
So these classical kids are playing with traditional Irish music. It's like, brilliant idea. To just break down the barrier of classical music's one music, traditional music's one music. And then he was giving them that, their role, and then the banjos their role, and doing little funky guitar things on the banjos. It was really well thought out.
The back line of harps,
and the back line of harps, 20 harp players, and then they brought brass in, so they had some kids from jazz school, School of Jazz, and Michael was. I'm really impressed with Michael. I'm really inspired by his enthusiasm, the way he talks to kids, the way. I've learnt, this is how you can do it. He's inspired me to be confident and be just be natural. And he's very natural about his way, and they listen to him, and he's very, he shouted at the kids, going, Michael McGoldrick's come all the way over from Manchester. You're not, listen, harps, listen, you're out of time. And he's bringing them all into time. Don't be wasting this man's time. But they were listening. It was just brilliant.
But before all that started, though, he had to, and he is, but he, as a composer, he had to basically deconstruct the music you had written, you had recorded, which is now, that album's like a classic now. And he deconstructed a lot of your own compositions and then put them all back together again in a way that suited this orchestra. But I wondered, from your perspective, what was that like to almost give someone else that agency to do that?
Fine, because as Michael said, I didn't go too far away at having to rewrite stuff.
Yeah.
It was already there for me. So I had a template already there. The album was there, and I had to just take that and pass it on to different instruments and do the different lines.
Still a lot of trust.
Still a lot of trust, because. But he totally got everything. He said, I've been going to sleep listening to your albums. I've got it all. He says, if I don't hear one of your tunes ever again, it'd be like it's a blessing, because I'm sleeping, I'm waking up listening to your music. Your tunes are in my head because he had to do this. I mean, was it 100 kids?
Yeah.
I think there was 100 kids.
I think, actually, you're right. I think there was about 100 kids on stage. Yeah.
And we came off and we had a drink afterwards, and I said, thanks for your work. And he said, listen, it's been so much fun, and I hope we can do it again. So I've been speaking to Maggie, and I've been chatting to Donald Shaw for the Celtic Connections, and we're going to try and do some kind of version of it over at Celtic Connections in January, and maybe incorporate some Irish musicians from Glasgow, from the St Roch's School of Music, and maybe the Conservatoire of Folk Music and Traditional Music, and bring them in as well. So maybe 50 kids from Ireland, 50 kids from Scotland, and or like, I don't know how many we can fit on the stage and how big the venue is, but it'd be great to do it again. I would like to see it never be done again. It was just such an inspirational thing to be asked to do it, and to take that music and teach them kids an album that's 25 years ago.
But how did it feel for you to be on the stage that night when you started playing? The audience was all assembled, and you then started to play with that sound and that energy and that buzz behind you.
Yeah. You've just described it. That's exactly what it was. It was just that energy, that buzz, that sound, and emotional as well, because it's kind of like, you know, I'm in my 50s and these kids are 16 and they're playing tunes, and sometimes your tunes get forgotten, and they won't be. These kids are keeping it alive and playing and having an experience of having a brass section. They wouldn't be used to playing with brass. You know, or James Mack on the funky drums.
Oh, sure, he's just amazing. Something else.
Yeah. The barroom players listening to James McIntosh drumming and locking in with him, and
serious groove. It was just so fantastic. And I think that was the beauty of it as well, where these kids were just so excited to be on the same stage as all of you.
They said
you and Tim
lovely
and James
things.
and Desi. Like, it was incredible for them, and you could see that, like, the honour of their lives.
I mean, we watched the videos they did, and they were saying it was just so nice to be on stage with Mike and Desi and Tim, and we're going, it's the same right back at you, just as simple as that, right? It's just been so much fun playing with you. It's been brilliant.
That's lovely. And even when you were talking about it there, I remember you coming off stage in Monaghan. I was lucky enough to be there that night, and I knew this, obviously there was a night the next night in the Ulster Hall, but I was like, no, he enjoyed that too much. There's going to be something else will come out of this, and you'll make it happen because you believe in it.
Well, that's just the thing I just said. I had a drink with Michael Rooney. I said thank you, and he said thank you, and he says we can't let it stop here. We've got to take it somewhere else. And then the first thing is, because it's a big enough festival that we could do that, and you could incorporate the kids from Glasgow and maybe even Manchester. There's kids playing music in Manchester. Bring them up as well, and just invite them up. And
so that's, in that respect, that's like looking on to another project where you're so energized about it, and you know that this is something else you can do. It will, exactly, and it will.
Might not be this year, but it's going to happen.
When everything aligns, it will happen, and it'll happen because it's meant to. And I wonder, though, then, given all the different projects you've been involved in down through the years, when do you know it's time to stop something and say goodbye to something? Because that equally, that's
a good call.
In a career, though, in a career as long as yours, that's inevitable that happens.
Yeah, but I haven't really stopped. I mean, I've been in Capercaillie nearly 30 years. I know. Been playing with Capercaillie 30 years. I still play with Desi. I mean, I've known Des Donnelly since I was 8 years old. It's like my brother. It's like we just love playing with me. Love playing music with each other. Just touring and doing gigs. I don't know. They always everything's always stays.
Comes around again.
Yeah, it just sort of. You might take a break from it, like the big band playing in the Mandela Hall. I played in January, but that's the only gig I've done in probably 4 years, like with that 12-piece band. And it sounds new again. I think when you're doing so many gigs, you get bored of it. You get bored of the sound. The word isn't bored. You think, God, it's.
You're going through the motions.
Motions, yeah. And I think that's a good point. If you're going through the motions and not enjoying it, that's time to take a step away from it. Just give it a break. Not to leave it. Not to say it's finished. Just take a break from it, and it just feels like as new as ever. Like the other night, everybody came off. Alan Kelly said to me, Mike, that was just amazing. Like, I really enjoyed that. He's buzzed up playing the box, and Graham Blev's on saxophone, and the same. Donald did great. A little WhatsApp group. Everybody's just like, that was amazing. Just really enjoyed it. Looking forward to now, because we're doing it again in Switzerland. Looking forward to Switzerland. So, I mean, Donald O'Connor came to me and says, man, that blew the roof off the Mandela Hall. Thanks a million, Mike. He says, this band should be doing 20 gigs a year. And when he said that, I walked away going, this band should be doing 20 gigs a year. And I'm like, and it's not because
where are you going to find 20 nights of the year to do the gigs?
Oh, where are we going to find 20 gigs for 12 people?
You'll find them.
Yeah,
you'll find them.
Festivals, and I think it's a festival kind of band. So
yeah.
If we could get together for the odd festival, that'd be great.
Bring the vibe.
Yeah.
Very quickly, how did you end up playing music with Mark Knopfler?
Funnily enough, my best friend, again, musical partner, brother, John McCusker, who I've worked with for years, was in the band before me, and his wife then, Heidi Talbot, was having his daughter Molly, and he rang me and he said, I thought he was joking. He said, I can't do this tour in North America. Yeah, I can't do this tour in North America. So it's for 5 weeks, and then they're coming to Europe, Mark and the band, and I'll join them then, and we'll switch. And I said, well, I don't play fiddle, and I don't play. What else do you play in the band? He said the sitar and the mandolin, and I says I don't really play them either. He says no, look, you can play the banjo, and I was like, yeah, I can. He says it's very similar. The parts are very similar, so you can borrow my sitar because I didn't own one. I shouldn't actually be saying this on a podcast, and nobody knows this.
Go on.
I know. So I borrowed his sitar and I learnt the stuff. And I went out and I played the fiddle lines on the whistle and the flute and the pipes. So I brought a new sound into the thing, but I was covering all these lines, and John was brilliant, and he helped me like rehearse them up. And then I went to London and rehearsed, and I went to America. And then when I was on tour in America, Mark, just was saying things like, when we play Manchester, it's going to be great. And I was like, absolutely, I'm going to come and bring my wife and my kids. And he was like, bring your wife and kids? You're going to play it? I was like, oh, right, okay. And I was thinking, is he mixing me up? Does he think I'm John? And then he was talking about Newcastle, and he was saying, I love Newcastle. It's a hometown gig for me. He says, it's a big venue, but it feels quite sort of like a small venue, but even though it's just the way it's built, it feels like, the Albert Hall, it feels like intimate, even though it's 10,000 people. So he's talking about all these gigs, the Albert Hall, London, Manchester, Newcastle. So I went to management and I said, look, Mark's saying, I'm only supposed to be here for 4 weeks. I've got other commitments. I've got other gigs. I've got other things. But he's talking about saying I'm doing these gigs. Can you find out for me what's happening? So they came back and they said, the good news is you're on the tour. John's coming back. He's keeping you on. You're in the band, blah, blah, blah. You're doing the whole leg for another 3 months in Europe. And I was like, fantastic, this is brilliant. I need to let people know. I says, what's the bad news? And they said, well, the bad news is we've got to listen to you.
No.
Yeah, so they didn't. I don't think they liked the pipes, the management, but it's a joke.
Yeah, but your pipes, you mentioned, we've got through the whole conversation, didn't even mention the fact that you play the pipes as well.
Yeah.
The pipes, the flute, the low whistle, the banjo, sitar, drums, boron. You can also sing. Beautiful songs. I'm thinking of the gorgeous version of the Curra Road that you sing as well. And there's so many of them.
Don't go there.
Oh, there's so many. I was going to ask you for a song, Mike. Come on, would be rude not to, perhaps.
Must be good from my mother's voice. Yeah.
Exactly. When you spoken about her, exactly something you didn't like the pot for. But tell me this: the pipes though. How did you learn those? Or what?
Later in life. So this is a true story. I was at Lorient Festival, 1989, and a lad walked in. This was before I met the McSherrys and I came to Belfast. This lad walked in a pub with a flash bar, and he was holding a big case, and I thought, that's a pipes. And I said, is that a set of pipes? And he says, aye, set of pipes. So I said, I play the flute. And we played a tune, and it was John McSherry. And then the very first time I ever tried the pipes, because I'm left-handed player, he filled the bag up and he turned the chanter around so I could have a little go, and he filled it up with the air, and the sound came out, and I had a little go, and I was like, wow, it's not that different from playing the low whistle or the flute.
Okay.
And then he kind of did a quick lesson of saying, this is the scale, this is what you do, and 2 fingers off, 1 finger, 2, 1. It's different to the whistle, different to the flute, very different. But I had the movement that I could do. I got a little bit of a jig out of it, and then I was trying to source a set of pipes for a few years. It took me a few years, but then I was in my 20s. I got a set of pipes, and then I've just been practicing ever since, and I'm still practicing them. And I love the pipes. And an influence would have been John. Big influence was John. Even though I was playing in a band flute with him, when I wasn't, playing flute, I'd be practicing the pipes. Davy Spillane. Yeah. He was definitely the biggest influence when it came to piping. I mean, his Atlantic Bridge album, it's just incredible. It's just, even for my sound, and Capercaillie was an influence, and Moving Hearts was an influence. Davy, for me, you know, his piping was incredible, but he had Anto Drennan on electric guitar, he had Tony Malloy on bass, and you know, his ideas, his blues influence. He's very influenced by blues. Rory Gallagher, you know, playing slide on tracks. That was, you know, I like funk and jazz, and you can hear that in my sounds. He was very into the blues, and you can really hear that in his sounds. And without his music, I wouldn't be the musician I am today.
You think that's the one album, Atlantic Bridge, is the album to listen to? If anybody takes anything away from this conversation, listen to that album.
Yeah.
And you might grow closer to understanding how Mike McGoldrick's brain works.
Yeah, okay. That's sort of, yeah. Well, I mean, he influenced, I think he's the voice of every piper, really.
Yeah.
You know, Davey, for being ahead of his time, really. It's the sound of Riverdance. I mean, if you listen to that album Eastwind, if you just listen to the first track, it's like, it's the sound of, it's Riverdance. But in 1987, you know, it's like, that's when the album was made, way before it.
Yeah, that's
they brought that sound to it.
He was doing,
It's a shame you don't see Davey. He doesn't play much anymore. I'd love to see him doing a gig.
Breaking the mould.
Yeah.
Breaking the mould. As are you, Mike. You continue to do so. Thank you very much for taking time out of an absolutely hectic schedule here in Belfast to join us in the snug of Music at Madden's.
Yeah.
To be continued.
To be continued, yeah.
Go Mila Wygott. Thank you.
Take care. Thank you.